So I've got some prepared fiddleheads here, and I'm just going to blanch them in this boiling water. All right. So these are ostrich fiddlehead ferns that I collected a few days ago, and I'm just going to blanch them for 1 minute. And the reason we do this is it gets rid of some of the bitter flavors. Some species of bracken fern have like low levels of carcinogenic compounds in them, and then that's started to make people wonder whether other fiddlehead mushrooms and fiddlehead ferns might also have toxic compounds. So the other reason we're boiling this is just in case there's small amounts. My rice is done. Of compounds, and even if there are small amounts of compounds in the ostrich fern, this is a seasonal treat. You eat a couple times in the spring, and then you don't eat them again. It's not like this is a major staple of our diet. So I'm just going to let this continue to boil for about another 10 seconds or so, and some of the bitterness is cooking out. This is also making them a little bit more tender, and blanching also stops enzyme action. So it's often done to fruits and vegetables to briefly stop their enzyme action so they won't, say, turn brown on you or something like that. All right, so this is all ready to go, and I'm going to take it off and put it in, shock it in some ice water that I have in my sink. I've got my blanched fiddleheads all ready to go. All right, so they're a little more tender than they were, maybe a little less bitter, and they're all they've been blanched for 1 minute and then cooled in ice water. Stop the cooking, and now we're going to cook these in browned butter. I'm just going to show you the fiddlehead fern again. Remember, if you're harvesting fiddleheads, or if you're ever out in the woods and you see a fern this summer that is approaching as tall, like is more than like hip height, look to see if it could be a fiddlehead fern. And again, you're going to look to see for that deep groove in the stem. And even as a full-fledged fern, it'll have that deep groove. And mark that spot. And in the spring, in April, come back and look for fiddleheads. So I'm starting by melting the butter here, but we're actually going to brown the butter. And the browning the butter does two things. The sugars in the butter from the lactose, milk sugar, start to caramelize. And this starts happening, hasn't happened yet. Right now it's just melting. But the caramelization starts to happen at about 270 degrees Fahrenheit. And you'll see some browning happen. And then when it gets even a little hotter, a second reaction called the Maillard reaction, which is actually named for a chain reaction, will start happening where the sugars, the lactose in the butter, will start reacting with the proteins in the butter. And there's small amounts of protein from the milk solids in the butter. And those will start reacting together in this chain reaction called Maillard reaction. It's what causes golden brown bread. And that literally produces hundreds of aromatics, this Maillard reaction. All those like yummy smells that you think about with like a golden brown cookie or a golden brown loaf of bread, a lot of that is the Maillard reaction. So the caramelization kind of browns the sugars, brings out deeper flavors, and also a little bit of bitterness. And then the Maillard reaction brings in this whole other level. So the browning hasn't started yet, but it will any second. And the thing about the browning is it very quickly goes from brown butter to burnt butter. So I have the fiddleheads ready here. I'm going to stop the browning of the butter by pouring in the fiddleheads. Oops, I put a little water in. That's going to slow it down for a second. So now I'm starting to smell those caramelized smells and that Maillard reaction. There's a very nutty aroma. I'm starting to see some browning here. I don't know if you can see it. when the foam dies away, it's getting, the milk solids are really turning beautiful and golden brown. And I'm going to let it go just another second. And then before it turns into burnt butter, and go over to the head. So these have already been blanched. So they just need to get a little browning, a little more cook. And so I'm just trying to get each one coated in some butter. And then I'm going to let some browning happen here. So we're all going to also get some of that same caramelization and maybe a little bit of the Maillard reaction happening in the carbohydrates and proteins in the fiddleheads. Okay, so we'll let this go for a little bit. I'm just trying to get good contact with the fiddleheads in the bottom of the pan. And then I'm going to let it sit for a sec. I have some garlic all ready to go here that I'm going to toss in right before I take it off. And I think I'm going to put in a little bit of lemon just to brighten it out. And I'm going to have that lemon juice ready too because I want to, again, maybe stop the cooking quickly if I need to. And fun fact, if you've ever used a spray tan that wasn't a dye, you know, that goes on clear spray tans, they actually use the Maillard reaction to brown your skin. So I can smell a little bit more of that nuttiness. This is this cascade of reactions that are bringing out these additional flavors and aromatics. I can smell the fiddleheads, and they kind of have a fresh mowed grass kind of smell. I think they could probably start to brown. I'm going to toss them a little bit. And they're also going to have just the flavor of the brown butter even before they start to cook too much. And these are going to need, these are pretty small fiddleheads, and I've blanched them ahead of time. I'm going to try one to see how tender they are. That's just crisp tender. This is kind of how I like asparagus. So I'm going to put, I've chopped up some garlic here very finely. And I'm just going to add this at the very end here to give it some extra flavor. And season it with a little salt. You can smell all that delicious garlic smell. I've just turned the heat off. I'm just going to let it go a little bit longer. And then I'm going to add in some fresh squeezed, I put a lemon in here, lemon juice. And a quick grind of pepper. There you go. Blanched fiddleheads sauteed in brown butter with garlic and lemon. Bon appetit.